The crystalline being floated in the damaged ship's bridge, its body flickering with dim light patterns that spoke of exhaustion and fear. Ambassador HFY had traveled farther than any of his kind had ever gone, into the dark regions of space where the maps ended and the warnings began. His people called this area the Forbidden Zone, where the Deathworlders lived. The ship's sensors detected movement ahead. HFY's crystal form pulsed with nervous energy as a massive metal vessel appeared on the screens. It was angular and gray, covered in strange markings and weapons that his people couldn't identify. This was a ship built for war, not the peaceful exploration vessels his kind was used to. Unknown vessel, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Defiant. You are in human space. State your intentions. The voice came through the communication system, translated by the ship's computers into the harmonic frequencies the Vallani understood. HFY activated his ship's response system. Please, I am Ambassador HFY of the Vallani Confederation. My people are dying. We need help from the Deathworlders. There was a long pause. When the human voice returned, it sounded confused. Did you just call us Deathworlders? Yes, HFY replied, his crystal body dimming with sadness. The galactic databases classify your homeworld as a Class 12 death world. We know your people must have great defensive technologies to survive such a terrible place. We have traveled far to ask for your aid. Another pause. Through his ship's sensors, HFY could detect smaller vessels moving around his damaged craft. The humans were being careful, which was wise. Many species had tried to trick others in these dark times. Ambassador, we're going to bring you aboard our ship. Don't be afraid. We want to help. Captain Chen's voice was gentler now, and HFY felt a small flicker of hope. The human ship was like nothing HFY had ever seen inside. The corridors were straight and functional with no beauty or artistic elements. Everything was designed for efficiency and durability. The gravity was heavier than his homeworld, and the air had a strange smell that his suit's filters worked hard to clean. Captain Chen was waiting in what the humans called a conference room. She was a small creature compared to HFY's floating crystal form, with brown skin and dark hair tied back in a practical style. Her uniform was simple and clean, marked with symbols that meant nothing to the Vallani. Ambassador, please tell us what's happening to your people, Captain Chen said, sitting across from him at a metal table. HFY's crystal body pulsed with blue light as he began to speak. The Devourers came to our space 6 months ago. They are a terrible species that consumes other races and turns them into slaves. They have already taken 12 of our colony worlds. Our military tried to stop them, but we are not warriors. We are artists and philosophers and scientists. We build beautiful things, not weapons. Captain Chen listened carefully, occasionally asking questions about the Devourers' technology and tactics. HFY found it strange that she focused so much on military details rather than the suffering of his people. What kind of help are you looking for? She asked. We need evacuation ships, HFY explained. Our remaining colonies have 40 million civilians who need to be moved to safety. We can offer our crystal technology and star charts in exchange. We know the Deathworlders must have strong defenses, so perhaps you have cargo ships that could help us. Captain Chen's expression changed in a way HFY couldn't interpret. Ambassador, I need to contact my superiors. We'll give you quarters to rest while we discuss this situation. The room they gave him was small but clean, with everything bolted down in case of emergency. HFY floated near the window, looking out at the strange human ship. He could see other vessels in the distance, all the same gray color with the same weapon-like appearance. These Deathworlders certainly built things to last. Hours passed before Captain Chen returned with another human, an older male with silver hair and more symbols on his uniform. Ambassador, this is Admiral Marcus Rodriguez, commander of our local fleet, Captain Chen said. He has some questions about the situation. Admiral Rodriguez sat down heavily and looked directly at HFY. These Devourers, how many ships do they have? The scouts report at least 300 vessels around our homeworld, with more arriving daily, HFY replied. They build their ships from the bodies of consumed worlds, so each one is different. And your military capabilities? HFY's crystal form dimmed with shame. We have no real military. Our ships are for exploration and trade. We never thought we would need weapons. Admiral Rodriguez exchanged a look with Captain Chen. Ambassador, when you say you want our help evacuating your people, you understand that means we'd be entering a war zone? Yes, but we only need transport ships. We're not asking you to fight the Devourers. We know that would be too dangerous even for Deathworlders. The two humans looked at each other again, and HFY sensed he was missing something important in their communication. Ambassador, Admiral Rodriguez said slowly, what exactly do you think Deathworlders means? Your people survived on a Class 12 Death world, HFY explained. The Galactic classification system says such worlds are completely hostile to life. We assumed your species developed advanced defensive technologies and strong shelters to survive. Captain Chen made a sound that HFY's translator couldn't interpret. Admiral Rodriguez was quiet for a long moment. Ambassador, what do you know about human evolution? The Admiral asked. Very little. The databases say your species developed on a world with extreme weather, dangerous creatures, and toxic environments. It must have been terrible. We call it Earth, Admiral Rodriguez said, and we don't consider it particularly dangerous. It's just home. HFY's crystal form flickered with confusion. But the classification system? The classification system was written by species that evolved on garden worlds, Captain Chen explained. What we call normal weather, they call extreme storms. What we call wildlife, they call terrifying monsters. What we call a challenging hike, they call a death trap. We've been wondering why no one ever contacted us before, Admiral Rodriguez added. Now we understand. The galaxy thinks our planet is uninhabitable. HFY processed this information slowly. So you don't have special defensive technologies? Not exactly, Admiral Rodriguez said. We have something else. We have experience dealing with hostile environments and dangerous situations. We've been doing it for millions of years. Will you help us? HFY asked, his hope fading. If the humans weren't as advanced as he'd hoped, maybe they couldn't help after all. Admiral Rodriguez stood up. Ambassador, we're going to help you. But I think there might be some misunderstanding about what human help looks like. What do you mean? Captain Chen smiled, but there was something sharp in her expression. When humans see civilians in danger, we don't just evacuate them. We eliminate the threat. It's more efficient. But the Devourers are too strong, HFY protested. They've conquered half the galaxy. They've conquered half the galaxy that doesn't know how to fight, Admiral Rodriguez corrected. That's about to change. As the humans left to make their preparations, HFY floated alone in his room, staring out at the gray ships in the distance. He had asked the Deathworlders for help, and they had agreed. But something in their tone suggested that help might come in a form the galaxy had never seen before. Outside his window, more human ships were arriving, emerging from the darkness of space like metal predators answering a call to hunt. Admiral Rodriguez stood in the command center of the UES Indomitable, studying the star charts that Ambassador HFY had provided. The crystalline alien floated nearby, his body pulsing with nervous light patterns as he watched the humans work. These Devourer ships, Admiral Rodriguez said, pointing at the tactical display. You said they're biological? Yes, HFY replied through the translation system. They grow their vessels from consumed organic matter. Each ship is alive in its own way, connected to the hive mind that controls their species. Commander Lisa Park, the Admiral's tactical officer, looked up from her console. Sir, that explains the energy signatures we're detecting. These aren't machines, they're organisms. Big ones, Admiral Rodriguez nodded. What's our current fleet status? The 3rd Expeditionary Fleet is fully assembled, Commander Park reported. 200 combat vessels, 50,000 Marines, and full support logistics. We can be ready to move within 6 hours. HFY's crystal form suddenly blazed with alarm. 200 ships? Admiral, I only asked for evacuation assistance. Surely you don't need so many vessels to transport civilians. The Admiral turned to look at the alien ambassador. There was something in his expression that HFY couldn't read. Something that made the crystal being's internal light dim with uncertainty. Ambassador, I think we need to clarify a few things about human operations, Admiral Rodriguez said slowly. When you asked for help with evacuation, what exactly did you expect us to do? Send cargo ships with defensive escorts, HFY replied. Perhaps 10 or 20 vessels at most. Enough to carry our people to safety while avoiding the Devourer patrols. Commander Park made that same sound Captain Chen had made earlier, the one HFY's translator couldn't interpret. Admiral Rodriguez was quiet for a moment, then activated his personal communicator. Dr. Vasquez, please report to the command center. Bring the xenolinguistics team. Minutes later, a human female with gray hair and tired eyes entered the command center, followed by 2 younger humans carrying data tablets. Admiral, you wanted to see me? Dr. Elena Vasquez asked. Doctor, we're having some translation issues with our guest. Could you run a full linguistic analysis on our communication with the ambassador? Dr. Vasquez pulled out a small device and pointed it at HFY. Ambassador, could you please repeat your original request for assistance? HFY's crystal body pulsed as he spoke in his native harmonic language. Dr. Vasquez frowned at her readings. Admiral, we have a problem, she said. The translation matrix is interpreting human military terms incorrectly. When we say tactical response, the ambassador's system translates it as peaceful solution. When we say neutralize the threat, it becomes avoid the danger. What about when the ambassador speaks to us? Admiral Rodriguez asked, even worse. When he says evacuation assistance, our system reads it as military support. When he says transport ships, we're hearing combat deployment. Admiral Rodriguez looked at HFY, whose crystal form was flickering with growing confusion. Doctor, explain this to me like I'm 5 years old. The ambassador thinks he asked for moving trucks and got the Marine Corps instead, Dr. Vasquez said simply. And we think he asked for military intervention and are planning accordingly. The command center fell silent except for the hum of machinery. HFY's internal light pulsed rapidly as he processed what he was hearing. Admiral, HFY said carefully, what did you think I was asking for? Military assistance to eliminate the Devourer threat and secure the safety of your people, Admiral Rodriguez replied. A standard humanitarian intervention with prejudice. And what are you planning to do? Destroy the Devourer fleet, liberate your worlds, and make sure they never threaten anyone again, the Admiral said matter-of-factly. HFY's crystal form went completely dark for several seconds. When the light returned, it was dim and unsteady. But the Devourers are too powerful, he whispered. They've destroyed entire civilizations. How can you possibly fight them? Commander Park looked up from her tactical display. Sir, the ambassador species has never encountered military doctrine based on offensive action. According to their cultural files, the Villani concept of warfare is purely defensive. They literally don't have words for preemptive strike or overwhelming force. Dr. Vasquez nodded. It gets worse. Their entire understanding of conflict resolution is based on negotiation and withdrawal. The idea of attacking an enemy to protect civilians doesn't exist in their language. Admiral Rodriguez sat down heavily in his command chair. So when the ambassador says the Devourers are too powerful to fight, he means too powerful to hide from, Dr. Vasquez finished. His people have never considered the possibility of actually winning a war. The Admiral was quiet for a long time, staring at the star charts showing Devourer positions around Villani worlds. Finally, he looked at HFY. Ambassador, I need to ask you a direct question, and I want you to think carefully about your answer. Do you want us to save your people? Yes, HFY replied immediately. More than anything. Then you need to understand something about humans. We don't run from threats. We don't hide from dangers. We don't negotiate with those who hurt innocent people. We eliminate problems. But the cost will be entirely paid by the Devourers, Admiral Rodriguez said firmly. Ambassador, your people asked for help. You're going to get it. But you need to understand that human help comes with human methods. HFY's crystal form pulsed weakly. What are your methods? Commander Park activated the main tactical display, showing the full strength of the 3rd Expeditionary Fleet. 200 warships appeared on the screen, each one bristling with weapons that had no equivalent in Villani technology. We're going to jump into your home system, Admiral Rodriguez explained. We're going to destroy every Devourer vessel we find. We're going to rescue your civilians, and we're going to make sure the Devourers understand that attacking innocent people under human protection is a very bad idea. All of this for people you've never met? HFY asked. Ambassador, Dr. Vasquez said gently. Humans have a saying, if you want peace, prepare for war. Your people prepared for peace and got war anyway. We prepared for war so we could have peace. Admiral Rodriguez stood up and walked to the star chart. The Devourers think they're the apex predator in this galaxy. They've never met a species that evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill them every single day for millions of years. They're about to get an education. Commander Park added with a smile that somehow made HFY's crystal form shiver. Admiral Rodriguez turned back to the ambassador. I need you to send a message to your people. Tell them that help is coming. Tell them to gather in safe locations and wait for human ships. And Ambassador, yes? You might want to warn them that human rescue operations can be a little loud. As if to emphasize the point, the ship's intercom crackled to life. All hands prepare for combat deployment. Marines to battle stations. This is not a drill. Through the command center's windows, HFY could see the human fleet beginning to move, 200 ships turning in perfect formation toward his homeworld. He had asked for help, and now he was beginning to understand what that meant when you asked the Deathworlders. The humans weren't coming to evacuate his people. They were coming to end a war. The crystal cities of Lumenis hung in space like frozen music, their surfaces reflecting the light of the system's twin suns. Each floating structure was a work of art, built by the Villani over thousands of years to create perfect harmony between function and beauty. Now dark shadows moved between them like parasites feeding on dying flesh. The Devourer bioships were massive organic constructs that pulsed with their own alien life. Some looked like twisted trees with branch-like weapon ports. Others resembled giant insects with carapace armor that gleamed wetly in the starlight. They had positioned themselves around each crystal city, ready to consume the remaining Villani population. On the bridge of the UES Indomitable, Admiral Rodriguez watched the tactical display with cold professional interest. Ambassador HFY floated beside him, his crystal form dim with despair as he saw his homeworld under siege. 63 Devourer vessels in the immediate area, Commander Park reported. Estimated total biomass equivalent to approximately 200 standard warships. They're using the civilian structures as shields. Cowards, Admiral Rodriguez muttered. Dr. Vasquez, what's our communication status with the hostiles? The Devourers operate on a hive mind frequency that our equipment can monitor but not yet interact with, Dr. Vasquez replied from her science station. They're talking about us, sir. What are they saying? They're confused. The hive mind is trying to classify our ships and failing. They've never encountered military vessels like ours before. Captain Chen, now serving as the Admiral's liaison officer, looked up from her console. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Devourer fleet. They want to talk. Put them through. The main screen flickered, then filled with an image that made HFY retreat behind a support beam. The Devourer communication drone was a nightmare fusion of different species, with crystal growths from consumed Villani, metallic implants from destroyed robot civilizations, and organic components from dozens of other races. Unknown vessels. The creature spoke in a voice like grinding metal. You enter Devourer territory. State your species classification for consumption analysis. Admiral Rodriguez stepped forward, his hands clasped behind his back. This is Admiral Marcus Rodriguez of the Terran Expeditionary Force. You are in violation of the interstellar laws of war by using civilian structures as military shields. You have one opportunity to withdraw peacefully. The Devourer drone tilted its head, a motion that sent shivers through its various organic components. Terran, species unknown. Planet of origin unknown. Classification pending. You will submit for analysis or be consumed. Negative, Admiral Rodriguez replied calmly. You will withdraw from Villani space immediately or we will remove you. A sound came from the Devourer that might have been laughter. Small fleet of unknown configuration threatens the swarm? Amusing. We have consumed civilizations with technology beyond your comprehension. Your ships will feed the hive. Admiral, Commander Park said quietly. They're moving to attack formation. Admiral Rodriguez nodded. All ships, this is Admiral Rodriguez. The hostiles have refused our terms and are moving to engage. You are authorized to use all necessary force to protect civilian populations. Remember, people, we're not just fighting for the Villani. We're showing the galaxy what happens when you threaten innocence under human protection. The communication with the Devourers was still active when the Admiral gave his next order. Fleet, weapons free. Show them how Deathworlders solve problems. What happened next would be discussed in galactic military academies for centuries to come, assuming any survived to build them. The human fleet didn't behave like any military force the Devourers had ever encountered. Instead of forming defensive lines or attempting to negotiate further, the human ships spread out in a pattern that made no sense to hive mind tactics. Each vessel became an independent predator, moving with purpose and deadly intent. The UES Indomitable opened fire first, and the Devourer drone's expression changed from arrogance to confusion. The weapons that emerged from the human flagship weren't energy beams or plasma cannons like the rest of the galaxy used. They were solid projectiles moving at a significant fraction of light speed, each one carrying more kinetic energy than most species' primary weapons. The first Devourer bioship, a twisted construct that had been grown from the remains of an entire planet, simply ceased to exist. One moment it was a kilometer-long organism bristling with biological weapons. The next it was an expanding cloud of organic debris. Impossible, the Devourer drone whispered. No species uses kinetic weapons of that magnitude. The energy requirements are easily met when you have a proper industrial base. Admiral Rodriguez replied conversationally. You see, when you evolve on a world that's constantly trying to kill you, you learn to build things that last. And you learn to build lots of them. The human fleet's true nature became apparent as the battle developed. Each ship carried enough firepower to sterilize a planet, but that wasn't what made them terrifying. What made them terrifying was how they used that firepower with surgical precision, avoiding the civilian structures while systematically destroying anything that posed a threat. Commander Park coordinated the assault from her tactical station, her voice calm and professional as she directed 200 instruments of destruction. Delta Squadron, target the bioships using the northern Crystal City as cover. Gamma Wing, clear the orbital platforms. All ships, watch your backgrounds. Civilian safety is priority 1. The Devourers tried to adapt as they had against every other species they'd encountered, but adaptation required understanding, and they couldn't understand what they were facing. The human ships moved like living things, each one responding to threats and opportunities with an intelligence that no hive mind could match. They're not fighting like a coordinated fleet, the Devourer drone said, its various biological components twitching with stress. They're fighting like a pack of predators. Because that's what we are, Admiral Rodriguez said simply. We evolved from pack hunters on a world where cooperation meant survival and isolation meant death. Every human ship out there has a crew that's been training together for years. They don't need the hive mind to coordinate. They do it naturally. A new wave of Devourer reinforcements emerged from hyperspace, doubling their numbers. The hive mind had called for support, confident that superior numbers would overcome whatever strange tactics these new aliens were using. They were wrong. The human fleet didn't retreat or regroup. Instead, they accelerated toward the new arrivals, spreading out in attack formations that looked random, but created overlapping fields of fire that left no escape routes. Admiral, Captain Chen reported, the Devourer hive mind is broadcasting on all frequencies. They're afraid. Admiral Rodriguez nodded grimly. Dr. Vasquez, can you translate their broadcasts? Yes, sir. They're trying to understand what we are. The hive mind has absorbed the memories of thousands of species, but none of them fought like this. They're calling us the death that moves and the hunters from the void. Ambassador HFY emerged from behind his cover, his crystal form pulsing with amazement as he watched the human fleet systematically destroy forces that had conquered half the galaxy. How? He whispered. How is this possible? Admiral Rodriguez looked at the crystal being with something that might have been sympathy. Ambassador, your people evolved on a paradise world where the greatest threat was bad weather. We evolved on a planet where everything from the bacteria to the weather to the geology was actively trying to kill us every single day. We didn't develop advanced defensive technology. We became the advanced defensive technology. On the tactical display, the last of the Devourer bioships was breaking apart under human fire. The creatures that had seemed unstoppable were fleeing in panic, their hive mind overwhelmed by the experience of facing a species that had turned warfare into an art form. This is Admiral Rodriguez to all Devourer forces. The Admiral broadcast on all frequencies. You have 3 hours to evacuate all Villani territory. Any Devourer presence detected after that deadline will be considered an act of war against humanity. Choose wisely. The response came immediately. Complete withdrawal. The hive mind that had never known defeat was experiencing its first taste of existential terror. As the last Devourer ships disappeared into hyperspace, HFY turned to Admiral Rodriguez. You said you were here to help evacuate my people, the ambassador said slowly. We are, Admiral Rodriguez replied. We're evacuating them from a war zone by ending the war. The Devourer hive mind had never experienced confusion before. For millions of years it had consumed species after species, absorbing their knowledge and adding their distinctiveness to its own. Every encounter followed the same pattern: initial resistance, adaptation, consumption, integration. The cycle was as natural as breathing to the collective consciousness that spanned hundreds of worlds. But the creatures, calling themselves humans, had broken the pattern. Deep in the bioship that served as the local hive node, the collective struggled to process what had happened at Lumanis. The memories of destroyed vessels flooded through the network, creating feedback loops of panic that the hive mind had no framework to handle. Analysis, the collective demanded of itself. The new species fights with kinetic weapons of unprecedented power. Classification unknown. Tactical assessment impossible. Probability of defeat does not compute. The hive mind had absorbed the memories of 1,000 species, but none of them had fought with such focused violence. Most civilizations used energy weapons that could be adapted to or defended against. Some used biological weapons that could be countered with superior biology. A few used exotic technologies that could be analyzed and copied. Humans used physics. They accelerated chunks of metal to near light speed and threw them at their enemies. It was primitive and elegant and absolutely devastating. On the UES Indomitable, Dr. Vasquez monitored the Devourer communication networks with growing fascination. The alien psychologist in her was amazed by what she was seeing. "Admiral, the hive mind is essentially having a nervous breakdown," she reported. "They're trying to process the concept of tactical retreat, but their species has never needed to retreat before. They literally don't have the mental framework for it." Admiral Rodriguez studied the tactical display, where scattered Devourer forces were regrouping at the edge of the system. "What's their status?" "They're requesting reinforcements from the core worlds," Commander Park reported. "Long-range sensors detect at least 50 bioships moving toward our position." "Good," Admiral Rodriguez said calmly. "Dr. Vasquez, can we tap into their communication network?" "Yes, sir, but why would we want to?" The Admiral's smile was sharp enough to cut crystal. "Because I want to talk to them. All of them." An hour later, the human fleet had positioned itself between the Villani worlds and the incoming Devourer reinforcements. Admiral Rodriguez stood in the communications bay, surrounded by equipment that Dr. Vasquez had jury-rigged to interface with the alien hive mind network. "This is Admiral Rodriguez of the Terran Expeditionary Force, broadcasting on all Devourer frequencies," he began. "I have a message for your entire species." The response was immediate. Thousands of bioships across dozens of star systems suddenly received a transmission that bypassed every defense they had. The hive mind recoiled like a living thing touching a hot surface. "You call yourselves the Devourers," Admiral Rodriguez continued, his voice carrying across the galactic network. "You consume other species because you believe you are the apex predator in this galaxy. You are wrong." Dr. Vasquez monitored the network traffic with growing amazement. The human broadcast was causing chaos in the hive mind. Individual nodes were trying to disconnect from the network to avoid the transmission, but the collective needed their input to function. "For millions of years, you have faced species that evolved on garden worlds," Admiral Rodriguez said. "Peaceful creatures who built civilizations based on cooperation and understanding. You developed tactics to overcome defensive strategies and peaceful resistance." The Admiral paused, looking directly into the camera that would carry his image across the Devourer network. "We are not peaceful creatures. We did not evolve on a garden world. We come from a place your classification system calls a Class 12 death world, where survival required becoming the most dangerous thing on the planet. We are what you get when evolution runs a 4 billion-year arms race between species." On dozens of worlds, Devourer bioships began to tremble as the hive mind processed this information. The collective had absorbed species from Class 1 through Class 8 worlds, but never from anything above Class 10. The databases said Class 12 worlds were uninhabitable. "You want to know why no species has ever successfully resisted you before?" Admiral Rodriguez asked. "Because you've never fought a species that considers warfare to be a survival skill. Every human learns to fight before they learn to read, because on our world, the ability to kill things that want to kill you is the price of staying alive." Commander Park activated the tactical display, broadcasting images of the human fleet to the Devourer network. 200 warships hung in space like mechanical sharks, each one a concentrated expression of humanity's approach to problem-solving. "You see weapons," Admiral Rodriguez said, gesturing to the display. "We see tools, Every human ship carries enough firepower to crack a planet because that's how we build things. When you have to fight hurricanes and earthquakes and volcanic eruptions just to grow food, you learn to build equipment that can handle anything. The Devourer reinforcements had arrived at the edge of the system, but they weren't advancing. The hive mind was paralyzed by conflicting imperatives. Attack the new threat, retreat from superior force, analyze the unknown enemy, protect the collective. You're wondering if you can adapt to our tactics, Admiral Rodriguez continued. You can't, do you know why? Because we don't have tactics. We have instincts. Every human out here learned to hunt and kill and survive before they could walk. You're not fighting a military strategy. You're fighting 4 billion years of evolutionary pressure. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her monitoring station. Sir, the hive mind is trying to analyze our ship designs. They're attempting to determine our weaknesses. Let them look, Admiral Rodriguez said. In fact, help them, sir. Broadcast our technical specifications. All of them. Let them see exactly what they're facing. Dr. Vasquez hesitated, then began uploading human military technical data to the Devourer network. Ship designs, weapon specifications, tactical manuals, everything. The effect on the hive mind was immediate and devastating. Impossible, came the collective voice of the Devourers. Kinetic weapons of this magnitude require industrial capacity beyond our models. Energy output exceeds theoretical maximums. Manufacturing capability suggests population in excess of viable planetary limits. Now you're beginning to understand, Admiral Rodriguez said. We didn't just survive on a death world, we conquered it. We turned a planet that was trying to kill us into a garden. We built cities that could withstand earthquakes and hurricanes. We developed industries that could function in toxic environments. We created a civilization that thrives on adversity. The technical data kept flowing, and the hive mind kept recoiling from what it saw. Humans hadn't just adapted to their hostile environment. They had adapted so thoroughly that they had become the hostile environment. Every human world is a fortress, Admiral Rodriguez continued. Every human city is a weapons manufacturing center. Every human citizen is a potential soldier. We built our entire civilization around the assumption that something would try to destroy it. So we made sure it couldn't be destroyed, Commander Park reported quietly. Sir, the Devourer fleet is withdrawing. All of them, even the reinforcements. Admiral Rodriguez nodded. You're making the right choice, he said to the hive mind. Because here's what you need to understand. We're not just defending the Volani. We're establishing a principle. Any species that attacks innocent civilians will have to deal with us. The Devourer response came slowly, transmitted by the entire collective. Terms? Complete withdrawal from all Volani territory, Admiral Rodriguez said immediately. Reparations for damages, and a binding agreement that you will never again attack a species under human protection. And if we refuse, Admiral Rodriguez looked directly into the camera. Then you'll discover what happens when you declare war on a species that considers extinction-level events to be weather patterns. We've survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, and global pandemics. Do you really think a few bioships are going to impress us? The silence from the Devourer network stretched for long minutes. Finally, the collective responded, terms accepted. Dr. Vasquez stared at her instruments in amazement. Sir, they're not just withdrawing from Volani space. They're pulling back from their forward positions across the entire galactic arm. The hive mind is repositioning their entire civilization to avoid us. Admiral Rodriguez nodded grimly. Good. Maybe now the galaxy can have some peace. Ambassador HFY, who had been listening to the entire exchange, floated forward on trembling crystal supports. Admiral, he said quietly. What have we done? You asked for help, Ambassador. We helped. This is what it looks like when Deathworlders solve a problem. 6 months after the Battle of Lumenis, the galaxy was still trying to understand what had happened. The Galactic Confederation's emergency session had been running for weeks, with representatives from hundreds of species trying to process the implications of humanity's sudden appearance. On the interstellar stage, Ambassador HFY floated. In the great crystal amphitheater of the Confederation's capital world, his form much brighter now than it had been during those dark days when his people faced extinction. Around him, beings of every conceivable shape and size debated the new reality they all faced. The humans have established a protection zone spanning 12 star systems, announced the Korthani representative, a gas cloud entity that communicated through controlled atmospheric disturbances. Any aggression within that zone is met with immediate military response. 3 separate pirate fleets have simply vanished, added the crystalline Nexari delegate. Long-range sensors detected human ships in the area, then nothing. No wreckage, no survivors, no trace. SciFi listened to the nervous chatter with a mixture of amusement and sadness. His fellow ambassadors were trying to understand humans using their own peaceful frameworks, and failing completely. The session was interrupted by the arrival of a new ship in the system's outer reaches. The Confederation's sensors had detected the vessel hours ago, but no one had expected it to be invited to the emergency session. Honored representatives, the session moderator announced, "We have a guest speaker, Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Diplomatic Corps." The amphitheater fell silent as the human walked to the central platform. She was smaller than most of the beings present, wearing a simple gray uniform with minimal decoration. But every representative in the room had read the reports of what her species could do when aroused to action. "Thank you for inviting me," Captain Chen said, her voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. "I understand you have questions about recent events." The Korthani delegate spoke first, its atmospheric disturbances creating visible patterns in the amphitheater's air. "Captain Chen, your species' military response to the Devourer threat was unprecedented. The Confederation needs to understand human intentions regarding galactic security." Captain Chen nodded. "That's a fair question. Human intentions are simple. We want to trade peacefully with friendly species, and we want to make sure no one gets hurt by aggressors." "That's it. But your methods," the Nexari delegate interjected, its crystalline form ringing with harmonic stress. "The level of force you applied was excessive by any standard measurement." "Excessive compared to what?" Captain Chen asked. "The Devourers had conquered dozens of worlds and were preparing to consume the Villani civilization entirely. From our perspective, we used exactly the amount of force necessary to stop them permanently." An insectoid representative from the Hive Worlds cluster clicked its mandibles nervously. "Your species destroyed an entire Devourer fleet in less than an hour. Our best military analysts estimate it would have taken our combined forces months to achieve the same result, if at all." Captain Chen's expression didn't change. "Ambassador, with respect, your combined forces never tried to achieve that result. You developed defensive strategies and evacuation protocols. We developed solutions." Zevhai decided to speak up. "Captain Chen, my people are grateful beyond words for what humanity did for us. But I think what concerns the Confederation is the scope of your capabilities. We're having trouble understanding how a single species could possess such overwhelming military power." Captain Chen was quiet for a moment, then activated a holographic display that showed an image of Earth from space. The blue and white sphere looked peaceful enough, but Zevhai had read the classification reports. "Class 12 Deathworld, hostile to all known forms of life. This is our homeworld," Captain Chen said. "It has an active geology that regularly reshapes continents, weather patterns that can level cities, biological ecosystems where everything evolved to kill everything else, radiation levels that would be fatal to most galactic species, atmospheric chemistry that corrodes most known materials." The image zoomed in to show human cities, vast sprawling complexes that seem to grow from the hostile landscape like living things. "We've been living there for millions of years," Captain Chen continued. "Every day our planet tries to kill us through earthquakes, volcanoes, hurricanes, floods, droughts, ice ages, diseases, and predators. Every day we survive, not by hiding or running away, but by building things that can't be destroyed and developing technologies that turn hostile environments into homes." The hologram shifted to show human industrial complexes, massive automated factories that operated in conditions that would destroy most galactic technology. "When you've spent geological ages fighting for survival against a planet, fighting against other species becomes relatively straightforward," Captain Chen explained. "The Devourers were dangerous, but they weren't a hurricane that could level a continent. They weren't a volcanic eruption that could blanket half a world in ash. They were just another problem that needed solving." The Korthani delegate's atmospheric patterns shifted nervously. "Captain, the Confederation has maintained peace for thousands of years through diplomacy and mutual cooperation. Your species seems to approach conflicts through more direct methods." "Because direct methods work," Captain Chen said simply. "Diplomacy is wonderful when everyone wants peace. But when someone decides they want to conquer and consume other species, talking to them doesn't help. Stopping them does. An elegant bird-like representative from the avian collective spoke up. What concerns us, Captain, is the precedent this sets. If conflicts are resolved through superior firepower, what happens to smaller species who cannot defend themselves? Captain Chen smiled, and there was something in that expression that made several representatives unconsciously move away from the platform. Smaller species call for help, she said, just like the Villani did. And if the threat is real and innocent lives are at stake, they get help. That's what the Terran protection protocols are for. And who decides what constitutes a legitimate threat? The Nixari delegate asked. We do, Captain Chen replied without hesitation, because we're the ones who have to do something about it. Ambassador HFY asked for help evacuating civilians. We helped by making evacuation unnecessary. If another species asks for help defending against aggressors, we'll help by making sure the aggressors aren't a problem anymore. The amphitheater erupted in nervous chatter as representatives tried to process this statement. The idea of a single species appointing itself as galactic police was unprecedented. HFY raised his voice above the chaos. Captain Chen, what if the Confederation objects to human intervention in galactic affairs? Captain Chen turned to look directly at the crystal being who had started it all. Ambassador, with all due respect to the Confederation, you had months to deal with the Devourer threat. Your response was to hold committee meetings and pass resolutions while entire civilizations were being consumed. We solved the problem in an afternoon. She turned back to address the full assembly. The Terran protection protocols are not a request for permission. They're a statement of intent. Any species that threatens innocent civilians will have to deal with us. Any species that needs protection can ask for it. The Confederation can accept this reality or not, but it won't change anything. The session moderator, a tall, graceful being from the core worlds, spoke carefully. Captain, you must understand that this approach could destabilize the entire galactic order. No, Captain Chen said firmly. Allowing aggressive species to consume peaceful ones destabilizes the galactic order. We're just providing a correction mechanism. As the debate continued around her, HFY reflected on the past 6 months. His people had asked for help with evacuation, and the humans had ended a galactic war instead. They had expected defensive technology and received overwhelming offense. They had hoped for survival and achieved security they never dreamed possible. The galaxy was changing, whether the Confederation wanted it to or not. For the first time in galactic history, there was a species that responded to aggression with superior violence, to threats with elimination, to problems with solutions. Captain Chen was wrapping up her presentation when she said something that made every representative in the amphitheater go completely still. Oh, and one more thing, she said casually. The fleet you encountered at Lumenis? That was our local patrol group. The actual Terran Defense Force is considerably larger. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of the Korthani, delegate's atmospheric form collapsing in shock. HFY found himself glowing with something that might have been amusement. His people had asked the Deathworlders for help, and they had gotten exactly what they asked for. They had just misunderstood what help looked like when it came from predators who had spent 4 billion years learning to survive anything the universe could throw at them. As Captain Chen left the amphitheater, HFY heard her comment to her aide. Next time someone asks Earth for help, maybe we should start with explaining that we consider planetary bombardment a proportional response to threats against civilians, just to manage expectations. The galaxy had asked for help. The Deathworlders had sent a battle fleet.